that Miles Harris is following. I'll set this up for us. So this morning we got video, very disturbing video. We're not going to play the video. We're not going to show any images because it is very disturbing. This is a video that is making its rounds across social media. Video showing a possum being set on fire. Now this has sparked a lot of reaction. We have received emails, phone calls about this. Our Miles Harris is digging into this story. He spoke with North Carolina Wildlife Resource Commission about this incident just moments before we hopped on this afternoon stream. Let's listen into that interview.
So we're talking today specifically on a video that's kind of circulating on social media in regards to some animal cruelty, specifically talking about a possum. Now, I'm assuming that you've been able to unfortunately get a chance to see this video, but when you first get a chance to see this video, what kind of is one of the first things that kind of triggers in your mind for starters?
Just the act of animal cruelty, comes to mind, and how it's unfair to the animal.
When we talk about the severity of this case, kind of break down where this case kind of sits in your guys' lap right now.
Yeah, so there's a misdemeanor level of animal cruelty and there's felony levels of animal cruelty. And right now it's under investigation, but this is looking like it's going to be a felony matter of animal cruelty.
As far as any updates in this investigation, have you guys been able to, or can you at least share with us if you guys have found anybody responsible for this case, or where are you guys at with that so far?
It's still under investigation, waiting to make contact.
Um, I mean, we're obviously here in the Charlotte, North Carolina area. Do you guys ever see cases like this frequently?
It seems like nothing to this level within the past few years since I've been working, but it does seem like every once in a while we'll have some cases of animal cruelty within the area.
Talk to me a little bit about just kind of the importance of getting this around as far as an educational standpoint when it comes to the community and knowing exactly what parameters stand when it comes to animal cruelty in a case like this.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is kind of a unique case, being that it's a wild animal, but this can be applied to domestic animals. It can apply to wild animals. So I would, encourage folks to, if they're not, as far as their pets, if they're not, giving them food, water, that kind of stuff, it can be considered animal cruelty. Any type of hitting, beating, killing maliciously, is going to qualify, whether it's a wild animal or not.
Now, Christopher, one of the things I wanted to ask you though too is like you mentioned, I mean, we don't know if this was a possum that belonged to these people or whether there was a wildlife in this case though too. But let's say, regardless of the case, what is the best way or the proper channels for people to handle whether it is a wildlife animal that they don't own? What's the proper ways of handling those?
Yeah, so on that matter, without a proper permit, a person can't have a wild animal as a pet. So without a certain permit that's through us, these folks wouldn't be able to have a possum as a pet. So we try to keep our wild animals wild because it's better for them and it's better for us. As far as diseases and everything. But in our area where there's just a lot of population, a lot of folks, we're going to have encounters with wild animals, whether it be raccoons, possums, squirrels, anything of that matter. If you have questions, if you're having certain problems, you can always give us a call. We have biologists that can help deter those animals without, the lethal part of it. And sometimes you may have to get a permit for depredation.
One of my last questions that I have you with this case now being looped in and the video making its way online, do federal authorities, are they looped in on this case right now as well? What you mentioning, it's also now looking like it could be a felony charge.
I'm not sure as far as federal agencies at this point.
Okay. Is there anything else that you wanted to add, Christopher?
I don't think so.
Awesome. Hey, man, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me on this matter.
And that was Miles's interview again, moments before we hopped on the stream regarding a very disturbing video. Yeah, I mean, we got emails, we got calls about it. We're digging into this story. Miles spoke with NC Wildlife Resource Commission, and we wanted to bring in Vanessa Rufus with this story, but that's a that's a tough watch. Just to be transparent, I maybe watched a little bit of it. I couldn't get through the video. I mean, it's just
We chose not to.
Yeah, we didn't even want to show it or even any sort of screenshot or images. What do you know so far? I know Miles asked them about federal charges. What are you hearing so far?
Yeah, I mean, from what I understand, based on the community outreach, folks have been contacting our newsroom and also authorities. From what I understand, there are multiple agencies that are aware of this video and are looking into it. So, of course, Miles, we heard that chat with wildlife officials. It sounds like CMPD is aware of this based on what I've heard from the Animal Care and Control Bureau of CMPD. And we actually just got a response a few moments ago from a representative with the FBI who said that she is looking into this case. So it sounds like FBI at the very least is aware that the situation has happened and is looking into whatever role it might have, if any, in this case. And the reason why we did bring in, the questioning about the federal level is there is actually a law that was passed back in 2010. Congress passed this law, and the name of it is kind of weird, and I can explain a little bit more about why the name of the law is like this, but it's the Animal Crush Video Prevention Act. And basically, it allows federal authorities to step in and levy charges and punishments in cases where there are animal torture videos that are posted online or on social media, whatnot. With essentially, once you put things online, things can cross state lines, if you will.
Okay.
And then that's the potential there for the federal, the federal authorities stepping in. Like I said, the name of the policy is kind of sad when you think about it, but it basically alludes to the fact that whether we like to think about this or not, there is a dark web, if you will. There is a web, a haven on the internet for people who dabble and, enjoy depraved, horrific things. And I mean, we're not just talking about animals, of course, we talk about child exploitation on a regular basis here and what authorities have been doing as of late to try to curb that. But I mean, there is, sadly to think here, a market online for people who are interested in videos of animals being tortured. So the name Animal Crush Video Prevention Act comes from the fact that there are videos out there of people crushing animals, burning animals, torturing animals, killing them. And so that's why this law was created, because authorities saw that there was a concern there with that.
And when I think of the dark web, I think of like some, hidden website, secret website. This was on, I'm not even going to name the social media site, but this was on social media. It was like very public. Like, I was just surprised by how bold this was to put this on a social media site.
Yeah, and I mean, it's shocking to us, but it highlights something that, this is not a secret. I've shared this before. I volunteer with Animal Care and Control, and I'm a foster mom of dogs, and our household is pretty well entrenched in the animal welfare realm, if you will. So just with our few years of being exposed to animal care and animal welfare, you become very aware of the darker side of things out there. When you start to see, for example, the conditions of some animals that might be coming into the shelter here in Charlotte, and initially you're shocked and appalled, and you're like, I can't believe someone would bring in a dog that's doused in gasoline and covered in burns. Why would someone do that to an animal? But you see it on a regular basis, and then it just becomes apparent that, whether we like to think about it or not, there's an element out there. Just as, I mentioned, there are people out there who prey on children. And I mean, these are all things that, we hate to even think about, but it's happening. And, this is something that authorities, should be and are dealing with. And obviously we have policies in place. We talked about the law, where lawmakers are aware that this is a thing and are trying to curb it with legislation.
Have you got a chance? I know you're very entrenched in the as far as advocacy, as far as with animals. Have you got a chance to speak with advocates, friends in that community?
Yeah, and we'll point out, of course, Miles Harris is doing a lot of digging specifically on this case, so he's actually going to go speak with, there's a group here that specifically deals with rehab of wild animals, although I won't say they're strictly wild animals, but they deal with a lot of possum rehab. And so the woman who runs that conservation center, she texted me today, and Miles is on his way actually to go interview her, so we'll have more of that perspective in his piece later tonight. But she's like, this is appalling. And I'll be frank, like, we started to get messages from the public to our newsroom. I want to say late last night was when I started to see the chatter on our newsroom threads about this. And this morning when I woke up, there were already messages from folks I know who are in the animal welfare realm here in Charlotte who are reacting to this. And, we talked about the fact about how all the messages are overwhelming. I mean, I basically have been telling my contacts to let people know that we know about this, we're covering it, police know about it, they're looking into it, just because there's so much of an inflow of interest in this case and people who are horrified that this happened.
And we're journalists, our job is to report the truth and the facts, but it doesn't make it any less disturbing. It doesn't make it any less whatever you want to say about it. Yeah, it's just, that is very difficult to watch, very difficult to see. Even you just recounting your work that you do, like, that's just difficult to hear, like somebody dousing an animal in gasoline. Like,
well, I'll mention this too, because of that work, that I've done, on the side as a volunteer, it's definitely informed some of my reporting here, just because, as a journalist, I see that happening, in my personal life, seeing the consequences of those animals coming into the shelter, and I'm going, I don't think a lot of people know that this is going on. I mean, we report on these cases every now and again, so, I mean, I feel like I've definitely, been interested in some of the policies surrounding animals and what does the public know, what should the public know a little bit more about. And I did want to point out, just because sadly this is a timely special that we have, but on WCNC Plus, our team put together this 1-hour special on prevention of cruelty to animals month, which is this month, it's April. And one of the things we talk about is the link between violence against animals and violence against people. And I was very stunned to kind of learn some of the statistics as we were doing research on this project, which, by the way, we'll let you know, you can actually stream that on demand here on WCNC Plus. So if folks at any point, whenever they feel like they have an hour, if they want to do it bite-sized pieces of a few minutes at a time, they can go to the shows tab on WCNC Plus and they'll find it under the in-depth section. But the FBI, I mean, there's a reason why the FBI tracks these cases, and you think, oh, it's just animal cruelty, but there is such a strong link between someone who's willing to harm an animal and someone who's willing to harm another human being. And we think about, people get captivated by these, murder mysteries and serial killer, stories, and in some of these cases, we do see the person has started off by harming animals. And the FBI has come to the point where it's such an established relationship that they know they have to track these folks because of, the high risk factor that there could be violence against another human being. And not even that, I mean, this is a statistic that sits in my mind from doing research for the special. Animal cruelty is actually a better predictor of whether someone is going to sexually abuse a child.
Really?
Then let's just say if the person has a background of like a prior murder conviction or a prior gun charge conviction, it's actually, there's a high link for whatever reason between animal cruelty and sexual abuse of children.
Wow.
I know, it blows my mind.
It's a lot to,
I know. And it's sad. It's sad to think about, the most vulnerable people in our population.
But it's important work that you're doing. Make sure that check out that special is available right now on WCNC Plus.
Yeah, on demand.
On
I do
demand.
have a question.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
So I know you've worked in this sphere for years now at this point. If someone sees a neighbor or somebody that's acting badly towards animals, but maybe is there a way they can report anonymously?
Absolutely.
Is there resources? Can you go into some of that?
Yeah, and there are a lot of different outlets that you can go about depending on what you're seeing.
Yeah.
But I'll say the bottom line is to initially contact your local police department or sheriff's department, whatever your jurisdiction is to start there. Now, that said, we've dipped into this concept of, dogfighting a few times now here on Live Impact News, since South Carolina just had that big bust, 150 dogs seized in a multi-county bust earlier this month. Dogfighting is such a priority now in South Carolina that SLED has a whole task force dedicated to it. And they actually have a tip hotline. And I think I put it on our web story, by the way, about the dog bust that just happened this month, but I believe it's tips@sled.gov or something like that. But the actual email address is on that web story if folks want to go to WCNC.com and just basically search South Carolina dogfighting bust.
Okay.
And look for that article. I would also recommend folks check out either ASPCA or it used to be called the U.S. Humane Society, but its name recently changed to Humane World for Animals. And some of these groups actually have tip lines and even offer rewards for people who report cruelty against animals. And specifically, I mean, a lot of this is tailored towards dogfighting, but primarily, like, your first route of action would probably be to go to police first off.
Oh, this is good to know. Oh, wow. Yeah. A lot to take in. But again, this is important information. As you mentioned, Vanessa, this stuff, it happens. If we want to turn a blind eye to it or not, it happens, right? So check out that special right now on demand on WCNC Plus. Miles' story continues to develop. He's continuing to dig into this case. He'll have more with us. I believe he's joining you later, possibly.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because he's on his way right now to the conservation center that deals with possums that are injured and need to be rehabbed. So after he wraps up that and gathers, that part of his story, we'll have him back here on Live Impact News just to talk about what he's learned as he's done these interviews.
And you can catch Vanessa on the stream, Live Impact News, starting at 2 o'clock. Vanessa, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.